shame, guilt, childhood sexual abuse, childhood maltreatment, they are all linked together. In fact, one without the other would mean that you are totally healed. In other words, if you no longer let shame have a hold on your life, that means you have healed that inner child that is part of my tagline. So why is it so important to heal from that toxic shame that we might have had as a child, and now we are exhibiting it as an adult? Hi everyone, I am Toyin Okunuga. I am your self-realization mindset expert. Thank you very much again for joining me in these also very important sessions. And today I'll be talking about shame. Shame, as we know, oh my word, it can be crippling. So I am a living, thriving witness of someone who suffered a lot of shame growing up. So again, I'm presenting my sort of like narratives on slides so that you can read them after, or just look at them after rather than just hear me speak. So healing from childhood toxic shame, what I call CTS. So why is this so important? It is so important because, as I've said in a lot of my videos, what affects us or what we go through as children really affects us as adults, and we are all human, so it's not demonizing a lot of I'm a parent too, but it's just so that we can be more deliberate in how we are with children. And am I getting it all right? Oh, far from it, but I'm learning as I go along and I seek help. So shame and guilt, so they are sometimes used interchangeably, but they are different. They're different because guilt, this is about doing. So I did something maybe terrible, and I feel that guilt, and both shame and guilt, they are healthy when they are not prolonged. So that is the difference. So guilt, yeah, feel guilty if you've done something terrible. Feeling guilty about something, that means what you've done. I feel you should do, so should I, if I've done something wrong, and I should then take corrective measures or apologize or do something. It's an emotion that puts us sort of like in the right track. But then shame, this is more about being. So I am terrible. It's sort of like labeling ourselves. Again, I would say there are healthy types of shame too, because it's about boundary setting. So like, don't come here. That's where you can come. And shame, you can have that boundary sometimes just to keep us again in check. So, but then there is what I've now called toxic shame. So the toxic shame, this is the act of trying to be more than human. So a perfectionist, super achiever. And it's sort of like a paradox. So you can be that way, which is so highly extreme, or you can, and I would say you can then be lower down. And I experienced both, and I think they work both sort of like hand in hand. So on one hand, you are a perfectionist. So I was a perfectionist. I'm a recovering perfectionist. I'm really far from a perfectionist, because I believe if you've written a book and you've put your story out there, I don't think you can say you're a perfectionist, because there's so many things that you're vulnerable, you're putting yourself out there. So I actually would say I'm not a perfectionist anymore. I received the prizes for neatest girl in my secondary school because I was just so like a perfectionist, and it's crippling to be a perfectionist, and that's because I don't want to be shamed, because as I've said in my videos, I was sexually abused. I was in the middle as a middle child, and I was the only child from a different father. So, and I was with my white parents as a child. So there were a lot of crippling things that were making me shameful. Not with my white parents. I love them, I adore them. I'd even say they are my parents. But being a mistake child, as people would say, there's nothing mistaken about me, made me shameful because of how people portrayed me and how I portrayed myself. Sexual abuse is, I believe it's up there in terms of shame. Again, so as I said, less than human can also be a part of shame. So you're placed in a box. So I was placed in a box because people would hush me and say, Toyin, don't you talk, because you're not part of this. Some family members would say it, not even knowing that it was actually damaging, to say don't talk because you're not, people, we don't want anyone to know that you're a middle child and you're a mistake. So that is it. So yeah, so that is toxic, and it is shame based. So I was growing up having this shame based identity. But as I said, there is healthy shame. So the healthy shame is what I described earlier. But then we say that so literally, as if once you're shameful, you can just carry on. Well, there's a huge impact this has on the brain. So when I was going through shame, immense shame, I had no idea, like I'm sure you two wouldn't have an idea, that the shame that you are encountering has had a huge impact on your brain, and that's why you're carrying it on into your adulthood. Well, I can assure you, as for someone who researches, I research into a lot of neuroscience, psychology. I've sort of like done a lot of certificates in psychology because I was so curious. I'm a very curious person. I've always been, even before the abuse and everything. So it's only natural that now that I'm back into my homeostasis, into balance, it's just me through and through. I just had a detour along the way. So the brain and shame, oh my word. So I won't go too technical on you, but just to say that when we're faced with shame, the brain reacts as if we are facing a physical type of threat. So it activates our sympathetic nervous system. So you might think, oh, sympathetic, that's taking sympathy on us. No, it's not. Quite the opposite. It's more of the flight and fright emotion, the hormones that are stimulated there. So it's getting ready to flee. Because as I've said, again, a little bit triggering, but I was always scared at home because I felt like that someone was going to come to my room and abuse me, because that was the pattern. So I was always at high alert, and that's the flight and fright, the amygdala, which is keeping me at alert. But then it would happen and I would still be in constant alert, and because it was on a constant basis. So the flight, fight, freeze, so that is a sympathetic nervous system, which is commonly known as the SNS. So that is one that keeps us, of course, it also helps us to release those adrenaline when we are faced with danger, where we need to run, or we don't get in front of a car, or if a car's coming, that's how, we're alert, or if we're in the jungle, we run from a lion and those sort of things. So it's a very useful type of the emotions that stir up in us. However, it's when they are continuously heightened. So when we see a lion, we run, we sweat, cortisol, adrenaline, everything runs up. That's meant to calm down after a while. But when it doesn't, that's when there's a problem and it becomes toxic, and then it carries on. So we have the opposite, which is then the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the opposite. That's more of digest and rest, when you want to go to the toilet. So it conserves energy to be used later to regulate your body. But when you are at high alert, you can't actually swap between the two. So it's like, of course, when you're at a state of heightened alert, you don't really want to wee, do you? Because you need all that energy to run. You need everything. But when you're not having that most of the time, then your body is out of regulation. So that's without going too technical. So the flight response triggers that feeling that needs to disappear. And that's part of shame. So I was always dissociating because I didn't want to be seen. And that's how I would feel like I'm disappearing. So when I was being abused, I would sort of like disappear into a different world, because I just could not believe that was happening to me. Because with me, I think people were curious to say, how did I heal? Well, a lot of programs that I'll be doing to come out, but please seek medical help if you feel you're hysterical. Because for me, I had felt love before. I'd had 2 other dads who doted on me and loved me, so I knew how love should be. So when my real father abused me, I knew it was wrong. I knew this wasn't love. And I'd had trust with my father. So when that happened, it was a huge shame to me. And I felt guilty that why didn't I stop it for a long time? But then I had to come out of that when I was healing. So the childhood sexual abuse is shame-based. It is so shame-based, especially if it's within the family. In my case, my father. So you can imagine it's not something that you shout about, not even sexual abuse. You don't shout about anything because it's so, apart from the physical violation, it's what it does to your brain. So as a child, your body, I've said in a lot of videos, you can check my other videos out there. As a child, your body cannot cope in constant flight or fright for a long time, so you park it. But you park it, and because you're shameful, and that's how I felt. So for me, so when you stay stuck, and you tolerate life. So I was tolerating life. I would be playing, I'd be studying, I'd be with people. You tolerate life. You don't actually enjoy and live it. You're just living for the people. You never want to go inside. You're always outside. Oh, how can I help? How can I be? You never want to touch your own inner feelings. So that's what happens. So you're living in the dark and you're not bringing your true story to the light. But I would say that I'll speak very... I'll get to a place where I will explain what we need to do, or, what I did really. So it's not predictive, it's not prescriptive, and it's not medical, it's educational. So there's a heavy load on you as you're growing up because you feel like everyone's watching you. That's how I felt. I felt empty inside. And every day you're sitting in pain. With me, it was unforgiveness. I thought people weren't fighting my corner. I was feeling so much shame, especially because some family members knew, and I just felt I felt even more isolated. And you're stuck in that for as long, for as long as you are not healing, you are there. Even if you feel you've parked it as an adult, no, it has to come out because your brain is now ready to deal with it. So it will keep tapping you, come, let's heal. That inner child keeps crying, come. And if you dissociate, then you'll be agitated all the time. So shame grows when hidden in our mind. So as shame grows, we become isolated, we are withdrawn from others, and we hide. I can remember being with a lot of people, but deep inside I was so lonely. And that's one thing to know, whether you are traumatized by something from your past. So why do people feel guilt or shame more than others? So I would say that it's grounded in our childhood baseline. So how was your childhood? What happened to you? Our behavior is influenced by the biology and environment, which means many factors come into play. So you would have to sort of know, what was in my family? How are they shutting you down? And sometimes as parents, when I'm talking to my children, so I have to be mindful that I hope that's not shaming them by saying they've done something wrong. I make sure that when I'm saying something they've done is wrong, I don't sort of label them to say you are wrong, that you are terrible, because when you grow up hearing things like that, then you mirror whoever you've grown up around. So I've had to grow up and reparent myself to say, no, my child is not wrong. What he or she has done is wrong. So it's a learning, relearning, unlearning and relearning process for us all, because we all, one way or the other, shame other people. And it becomes sort of in that person as they grow older and they hold back. They're not as creative. They don't own their space because of the shame. So steps to overcome shame-based thinking. Growing young. Becoming whole is what I'll say. Growing young, becoming whole. Oh, Lord. When I started to heal in my 30s after a lot of research, I started my research from from when I was in my 20s, but I was not bold enough, and I started, so it's like I'd put the cake in the oven and it was baking. So don't take out the cake until it's fully baked, and that's yourself. Don't expose yourself if you know you're not ready. So everything I'm saying here, what I would say here is you need to do your inner child work first. So that lower consciousness, you have to work on that before we get to the higher consciousness. And how do you do that? Therapy, medical help when you know that you're always frightened. You know, a lot of things are going on in the world right now, and if you're already in a heightened state, not mentioning the countries, but the countries that we know that they might, you know, they're coming up with different war towards, you know, aggression towards each other, you will be in a state of alert, or, you know, because maybe PTSD and war and everything's coming back, some memories keep triggering you. Now it's because you've not healed from those, and then they're just going to be compounding the more problems there are in the world, because we can't control those, but you can control how you feel. Not control how you feel, but you can heal so that you better manage how you feel. So like I say, don't go straight into to coming out to speak, to share your story the way I am, but you have to do that inner work with someone. You can't do it on your own, because for brain chemistry we have to weep, we have to cry, we have to sob. I actually interviewed my father at the time. Get your hush to rule, you'll see how I interviewed him, because I wanted to know why he did what he did. It's all in my book. I was very courageous to do that, but I just needed to know who I was. So for brain chemistry, you need to have expression. In terms of what I did was I was writing. I love writing. I've always loved writing. So I wrote. Expressive writing, that's a form of therapy. You can write, throw the letters away if you're not bold enough. I did loads and loads of those before I was bold enough to write a letter, and I got a response in another video that I'll be sharing. I'll be reading part of my letter, but it's a bit deep, just a little. So we need to maintain, so these are the steps to overcome shame-based thinking. So we need to maintain childlike traits. So I love playing, I love laughing, you know, so give yourself permission to play, and don't be a perfectionist. So I was very perfect, like, oh no, I can't do this. I would never be able to talk to you if I hadn't healed from my perfectionism, because I'd be like, oh my gosh, is that perfect? Is this right? Oh my gosh, this. But now, mistakes, hey, fail fast forward or fail forward fast. So bring shame-based thinking into the light, but that's when you've done your inner work and the therapist has helped you, or the medical practitioner, because shame grows best where? In the dark, in places where it has power is in the dark. So now it's lost the power. I'm shame resilient. Of course I'll still feel shame, otherwise I won't be human, because you need to feel a bit of shame. And also don't show your children as if, oh, I am shameless, what is you? But that's you not healing when you shame others. But let them know. But also identify what causes shame in you. So what tends to trigger those beliefs about being beyond repair, unworthiness, or the belonging? You have to, for me, it's the faith. I have that. Before I was born, God, I was known. And then you have to separate what you do, the actions, from who you are, your identity. So for me, I use God's words to help me discern truth from lies. The Bible is the ultimate authority on my identity. And I am deeply loved, John 3:16. I am chosen, Ephesians 1:4. And I am set apart. So choose, in my opinion, I chose to believe who God says I am, not what people say I am. And I also overcome shame-based thinking by practicing healthy thought life. When negative thoughts come to me, I'll say, no, Toyin, let it come and let it go. So catch those negative thoughts. That's another video that I released about. Catch them, put them on trial, and then, okay, you are wrong. Goodbye. Thoughts come to all of us, you know, people who sexually abuse others. I'm sure a lot of people sometimes always, you know, have those thoughts. The difference is they don't carry them out, they dismiss them. But those that go and carry them out, they're the ones that have allowed those thoughts to say they must do it. No, you must not. No, you must not. So there are the steps to overcome shame-based thinking. Growing young, becoming whole. And you will see that you will heal from all those toxic shame and have healthy shame, because healthy shame is good. We will all feel it, but it's when it becomes ruminating and you believe that you are the wrong person, and then negative thoughts get in you, and then different depressive ones too. So guys, don't forget to heal that inner child, and please subscribe to Hush to Rule, comment, let's have a dialogue. please comment. Thank you to everyone who watches my my YouTube channel. And remember, your inner child, it has a voice. Don't suppress it. Let it roar. Thanks for watching.